Well, hello again. It's so nice to see you. Oh no, please call me Lily. We're friends now. And I'm here having tea, waiting for Aunt Jane. And yes, she told me that you were interested in more information about what it was like to live here in Genoa and Carson Valley in 1918 because of so many things that were happening in the world that affected us in the United States. I'd be happy to share with you. I was very active in many of the social events and the fundraising events. And don't forget, we were still uh, suffragists hoping for the national vote for women. Yes, 1918 was a very interesting time here in Genoa. You remember that there was the Great Fire that only a few years earlier in 1910 had ravaged the north side of the town. We were hoping for more buildings to be built on the north side of town. Of course, the courthouse was restored, but Mormon Station, the very first building in Nevada, which we were very proud of, was not restored. We were hoping for more electricity throughout the town, electric street lights. We were beginning to work on that effort. And then, of course, there was the Great War that was going on over in Europe. Many of our Carson Valley young men signed up for that war. We're a very patriotic community, as you know. And at that time, we wanted to support our young men that had gone overseas. And Woodrow Wilson, our president, was promoting 100% Americanism. He wanted us to keep the lights on at night for our boys. And at the same time, our town manager was urging us to come up with some fundraising methods to install electrically lit streetlights as a way to enhance our town and make our town more beautiful. And we thought this was a good idea to combine the two efforts, to keep the lights on for our boys and to raise money for streetlights. But it became more important as the war progressed to raise money to send overseas to help our boys, to raise money, and to also uh, gather clothing to send to them and to make clothing. Why, I myself knit several scarves and socks and gloves for the boys. And my husband, being very patriotic, Louis, didn't realize how patriotic he was until he went to Reno one day and purchased a knitting machine for himself and some more yarn and sat down beside me in the parlor and helped me to knit. And of course, we had knitting parties. We knew it was a serious situation, but we made sure we had fun, as we ladies always do. Played my phonograph. My favorite music was always spinning on the turntable, and we had tea, and we would laugh, and we would have sandwiches, and we would have a good time knowing that we were making a difference for the war effort. As a matter of fact, my Aunt Jane Raycraft Campbell, who owns this establishment, and I sat down one day in early January and decided that we needed to come up with a fundraising effort for our local Carson Valley chapter of the Red Cross. And we love dances here in Genoa and Carson Valley. Somebody is always having a dance with a live band, usually the Baker Five-Piece Orchestra, and we decided to have a dance in February to raise all the money, all of the proceeds would go to the Red Cross. So we contracted Baker's Five-Piece Orchestra. Aunt Jane and I baked different delectable delights and different things so we could have a midnight buffet supper. And across the street right here from the hotel in the Raycraft Dance Hall is where we held the dance. We charged $2 a ticket. And we had dancing, and Mr. Dangberg Jr., Fred, he was a floor manager. And we had so much fun. Then around midnight, we had the supper, the buffet supper. And Aunt Jane baked this beautiful cake and hid inside of it a gilded donkey. And we sold the cake, pieces, just pieces of the cake, at 25 cents a piece. And of course, the winner of the evening would be the one who received the gilded donkey in the piece of cake. And that was Mr. Cardinal, of course, who did that. And he was so excited. It was such a little thing, but it was a big thing. And that cake itself raised $11 towards the effort. And after expenses, the whole uh, proceeds, after expenses, went to the Red Cross at the tune of $255. And it was just a small effort and a fun evening to raise so much money. We were so proud of ourselves. Then, of course, we were excited to learn on November 11th at 11 a.m. that a peace treaty was signed. The war was over. It was Armistice Day, and our young men would be coming home. But we knew we had much to prepare for them. Several were injured and maimed, and several would not come home, and those families needed attention too. So fundraising still continued. We still had much use for the Red Cross for those boys who came home, and a lot of what we did went into the next year of 1919. And then towards the end of the war, in the fall, of course, the Spanish influenza hit and traveled across the world, and no community was untouched then. Many families were quarantined, and here in Carson Valley in Genoa, we pulled together, we took care of our neighbors, we did what we could to learn about how the flu spread and how to keep ourselves healthy, but how to help our neighbors as well. It was a very difficult time. Things changed. We did not know when we would be able to dance and get together and have fun again, but we suffered through it, and we kept our chins up, and we knew that a day would come when things were better. In the July of that year, though, there were personal tragedies for our family. In town here, a very close friend, a very respected woman in our family, Mrs. Felicity Allenbach, who in her younger years had been a seamstress here in this town. She was in her 80s by 1918, and unfortunately, she had an affliction that caused her head and hands to shake and her voice to quiver, and she, being French, spoke with a French accent in a very shrill voice, and many of the children in town taunted her and called her several names, and Mother was always very kind to her, and we always tried to let everyone know that they didn't know her as well as we did. And she became much of a recluse and didn't let people in her home, and we did not know how far things had gone until one evening her house caught on fire. She had the habit of wrapping rags that were soaked in kerosene around her head because she had terrible migraine headaches, and she had knocked over a lamp or slept too close to a lamp. We're not sure what happened, but her home caught on fire and she was trapped inside and she perished. Just that day, her son, who lived in Reno, had once again begged her to move with him to Reno so he could take care of her. And unfortunately, she had made the decision too late, and we lost her. And Mother was much affected by this, and so was I. She had made me very beautiful gowns. I'm not wearing one today, but she had made me beautiful gowns in the 1890s. And then, in December, Mother passed, and our family was very much affected by this. We had lost my sister Ellen in 1906, and now Father, getting on in his years, became very quiet, subdued, and he's not as active in the things that he used to do. So 1918 was a year that, for us, there were, yes, a lot of tragedies and a lot of sad things that happened, and a lot of things that we hoped would come to pass and did not, and other things did come to pass that we were anxious for. But I tried to reflect upon the times that reflect the community that we are, that we come together, we're strong. Excuse me for being emotional. I just realize that our strength is in the people that we live next door to. So, excuse me. So I'm anxious for you to learn more about our history and our community and spend more time here, and you will understand what it's like to be here in the Carson Valley and proud of our heritage. So if you have more time to spend, please do come back. Aunt Jane always has a pot of tea on, and I encourage you to share your history of your community with your friends and family and the people that visit you, because it's very important. I hope to see you again soon, and thank you so much for visiting us. You're always a pleasure to speak with.